All right. Welcome to Broker Chat. For those of you that are new to this Zoom call, this is an open forum for an hour twice a month. I am the managing broker in the Midtown office, and Tom Fulkerson is our qualifying broker, and we alternate facilitating this event. It is an open forum for you to ask questions that you may have out in the field where you get our undivided attention to talk about it and along with your peers. Other people will be on the call that will have advice or chime in with some things that have happened to them. In the chat, you should have a handout if you want to go ahead and download that. The purpose of this particular call, normally we open the forum to you to ask whatever question you have, but sometimes you guys are a little silent, so we always come with a topic. And my topic is paying attention to the details. We've gone through a market that after 26 years, I've never seen before. And I've seen a lot of different markets. And this particular market, in my professional opinion, was built on sand and appraisal gaps. And now we are going into an unknown market. But for me, it feels, I'm going to use this word and I use it loosely, normal. This is what the market typically feels like. We just have a couple of other factors involved, like, I don't know, inflation, low inventory, things of those nature. That's not typical of a real estate market. But there is such thing as a seller's market and a buyer's market. I still think it's a seller market, maybe not a strong seller market, but it is still a seller's market. In some areas, it is probably turning, and you can chime in and say, hey, where I work, I'm starting to see it's more of a buyer's market. What I think is what we're seeing is that the sellers are getting a little bit more realistic about overpricing and saying, let's go for it, because people are over asked over everything. And I'm hearing a lot more that buyers are getting an opportunity to negotiate, where before it was just no negotiation, you take it or leave it. Okay? Anybody hearing anything different? Chime in.
Buyers are getting an opportunity to negotiate. Hey, Deborah, this is Barbara Guy.
Hey, Barbara. I can always count on Barbara. So yeah, buyers are getting a chance to negotiate and ask for things and probably get it. And if they're not getting it 100%, they're getting some concessions out of the seller in order for the seller to be able to move on. Now, the purpose of me talking about paying attention to the details, I am not the compliance broker. Let me turn off my phone. Sorry about that. I was calling someone saying, can you send me the link? Where was I going with that? Paying attention to the details. So when we were in the market of the summer and early part of the year, when our rates are around the 2 and 3 mark, you barely had a chance to open your computer, fill out a contract before that listing agent was telling you, I've got, 171 offers and you better get yours in today. And we all know we lived through that. Now, I work mostly with sellers as an agent. And so I experience the multiple offers and things of that nature. I don't work with buyers as much. And when you hone your skills with your contract, the most important tool, in my opinion, you already have a mindset of what needs to be filled out, how it should be filled out, because it's the same thing every time. Legal description, so, a closing attorney, earnest money, due diligence, things of that nature. It's the exhibits and the amendments that start to get a little wishy-washy when it comes to the compliance broker. And every market center has someone or a group of people that do compliance. In Midtown, it's Jason and Darcy. So I only get called if you're in trouble, GREC, complaints, strategy calls. I get a lot of strategy. Those are my favorite. The ones that are not so much my favorite is when you don't answer your phone and the agent feels the need to call me to ask you to call them back. Not a secretary, and that's not a broker function. So paying attention to the details includes answering your phone. So let's talk about some of the things that paying attention to detail, what I mean by all of this, because it's not just the contracts, there's a lot of things here. My favorite saying that I like to talk about during this meeting is even the slightest mistake could end up costing you money, stress, and a tarnished reputation. In this statement or this quote, for me, the most important is the tarnished reputation. Okay, you can always make money, you can always lose money, you can always woosah and get rid of the stress. But the reputation, that takes a little bit longer to try to get back, if ever. Okay, so let's look at the talking points. In real estate, one small detail can undo a deal or cost you a client. I'm sure there are people on this Zoom today that had a small detail that ended up causing the deal to fall apart, or your client walk away, or strife between you and the other co-oping agent, just from small details. Based on the calls that I receive, it's always a small detail. And for those of you that are on this call today that are from Midtown, the first thing I always say is, what does the contract say? And then what did you do to cause this complication? Because it's always someone else's fault. But it might start with, did we dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's before blaming the other side? The next thing is pay attention to small cues. The biggest complaint that I get from buyers and sellers when they are calling to complain about an agent is, I don't think they have my best interest. And if someone calls me to tell me that, there may be some truth to that. They may be the cause of the situation as well. And so, it's an excuse to say, I don't think they have my best interest. So I usually ask good questions and dig a little deeper. I don't make a judgment call, oh yeah, that agent is horrible or you're horrible. I don't do that with my own clients, let alone yours. It's something deeper. When people make statements like that, it's something deeper that we've missed or we didn't explain, that type of thing. And then you have to pay attention to every line of your contract. When I started in the business, this has always been a problem in our industry. Agents can fill in blanks, but they don't read the contract. Many times I get a call and, my favorite paragraph that no one ever reads is in the financing contingency, the paragraph that talks about when the decline letter is due. And I always get this glazed over, what? I didn't know that was in there. Well, when you say that to me, that tells me you didn't read the contract. You've never read it, because it's been there for years. As far as when a financing contingency or when your client is declined and the financing contingency expires, the lender still has 7 days to get this to you to give to the seller. And after that, it's waived. So for those of you who are going, what did she just say? Go read your financing contingency, first page, last paragraph. Okay? And then you have to pay attention to red flags that may be hard to spot during a home tour. Here's another thing. When you're walking through a home, now my background is architecture. So when I'm walking through a home, I might look at a home different than you would look at. I'm looking at cracks, I'm looking at scratches, I'm looking at doors that don't close properly. There may be some foundation issues. That's just because I'm bringing something to the table from my background. But if you have a client who's very picky, or maybe they don't have a lot of money for repairs or things of that nature, then you want to look around and see and point out, maybe we ought to ask about this. Maybe we ought to make sure that, since I saw a refrigerator in the basement and I saw a refrigerator, of course, in the kitchen, are both refrigerators staying? There's one that's avocado green in the basement and there's a brand new stainless steel in the kitchen. Let's make sure they're not going to switch that out and things of that nature. Do you see special chandeliers or fixtures in the home that look a little custom that might disappear, and they put a white $29 ceiling fan back in place? Now, some of you are going, well, that's what the seller's disclosure would say. You're right. And people still move it. So you want to make sure you're walking around not going, wow, this is a nice house. Ooh, they have a pool. You're not going to live there. Your job is to walk around and look for red flags that you can ask for in the contract, or it might affect your pricing, or something that you tell the buyer, we need to look closer when we have our inspection. Any questions about that? Comments? Let's move on. Now, let's see. I'm not sure if you're going to hear this. Let me just try it, and then let me know if you can hear it.
Have you ever completed a task and realized
Can you hear it?
Yes, we can hear it.
Okay, good.
you've forgotten to take into account a detail that means you have to start again? Or maybe you've misunderstood something, or just made a mistake because you didn't take in all the information? It's okay. We've all done it at some point. Maybe you were just rushing or distracted. It's all in attention to detail. Sometimes it may seem that something is
Oops, sorry. I punched something.
inconsequential and doesn't need to be considered, because how much difference can it really make, right?
Oh my God.
Surely one small thing can't be that big of a deal,
Not touch anything.
but those details are important, and we should always do our best to take them in. It's not always easy, especially with more complex tasks, but there are ways you can improve your attention to detail. And you may even be surprised at the difference it makes, not only to you, but those around you, including your colleagues and customers. So let's take a look at how you can improve your attention to detail.
All right. So let's talk about some things. Why quality real estate agents must pay attention to details. And I consider everyone on this call a quality agent. And if you don't consider yourself that, then hello, you are. You're with a premium company. We are, one of the top companies. When you ask any other brokerage, what company should you go to for training and things of that nature, they say Keller Williams. Other brokerages tout our name when it comes to training. And I think one of the reasons, it's not just training, we train you how to implement. Anyone can train, but we train you how to implement if you engage. Okay, many people will say, oh, I left because of the money and the this and the that and the that. They didn't engage. It's someone else's fault that they aren't successful. But if you look around, i.e. Bold is coming to town, that's implementation and training. So if you've never taken Bold, I highly recommend it. I've done it a few times, and I'm considering it this time. So how can you serve your clients properly? You want to ask a lot of questions, good questions. It's not just about, hey, I want to buy a house. Why do you want to buy a house? What kind of house? And here's an important question. If they give you a laundry list of things or a Christmas list of things that they want, and you start setting them up on the FMLS or Georgia MLS portal where they can just receive listings, you don't have any control over that. So you might want to have a little bit more detail to that and use concierge. If you're not familiar with that service, basically those listings are sent to you first so that you can go through them and go, oh my gosh, because I put in 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, whatever else, it might show a stucco home when your client said no stucco. So that's a small detail, but you can lose that client because they're going, this agent isn't listening to me. They sent me 4 bedroom, 3 bath, but every other house is stucco. By using that concierge service, you can look at that listing. That could be your, one of the tasks in the morning when you start your prospecting, and prospecting is also prospecting for your buyers. And that is a task that someone on your team or yourself, if you don't have a team, should be looking at to say, okay, Deborah wanted 4 bedroom, 3 bath, no stucco. Oh my gosh, there's 7 stuccos in here. Let me get rid of those. Or you can put them aside and say, you know what, Deborah, I know you said you didn't want stucco, but this one has everything. And we could explore having a structural engineer look at the stucco to make sure it's sound and so on and so forth, unless that client said absolutely no stucco. So you see how you can take a small detail and turn it into a win, and you look like a hero. Empathy, having empathy. I remember someone telling me I didn't have empathy one time. I thought that was interesting, but you take that with a grain of salt. You look at yourself and go, Do I have empathy? What someone says about me is really not my concern behind my back, but when they say it to your face, you might want to make sure. Okay, do I have empathy? So just know, look at yourself and say, am I being empathetic to my client who's living in a hotel and they need to close on this house? And am I fighting with the agent when it's not about us, it's about our clients? They want to sell their house and they want to get out of this hotel to get it. What can I do to step back and put my personal aside so that I achieve what my client needs? Small details. Are you trustworthy? Is your word trustworthy? If you tell someone that you're going to do something, are you doing it? If you don't know the answer, are you asking? Here's my pet peeve. Are you asking the right people, or are you going to the University of Google? I find it very interesting that we have brokers in every market center. We have an Atlanta board, we have classes. Yet when I talk to an agent, they will tell me that they went online to get an answer for Georgia, reading something from Nevada. I'm not understanding why. I mean, I could see that you would do it just to get an idea of an understanding, but real estate is local and University of Google is not where you find it. So my mother was a computer analyst. At the end of the day, the internet is garbage in, garbage out. There are human beings putting it in there first, and that may not be accurate. So you want to make sure you're talking to the right people to get the answers, so that you are coming up with some other idea. And then when the broker gets involved or someone else gets involved to say, no, that's not the case, there's your reputation looking like you don't know what you're doing. Your attitude. I don't know what to say about this other than there's no crying in real estate, and you shouldn't be taking things personal. This is a business. It always has been. Do we all get our feathers ruffled? Yes, including me. But that's when you politely hang up the phone, and you can use mine, walk around the house and say, bad words, or you just talk out loud to yourself and get it all out of your system. And then you come back with a smile and professionalism. Whatever it is you have to do, go run, go exercise, step away from the phone for a minute, step away from the computer for a minute, but always come with a great attitude. Those are small details. You don't want anyone to use that against you. Your integrity. Where is your integrity? Our Y4C2Ts in Keller Williams, the I is integrity. And we want to do the right thing. And different details of not being in integrity in your transaction. I find that there's a lot going on out here of taking shortcuts, and, I'm buying my own property and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and then the seller finds out you're buying the house for yourself and didn't disclose it, and no one on this call, but it happens a lot. And we need to really stay in integrity. Listen, learn, and look. Listen, learn, and look. The operative word here, listen. We tend to talk too much and listen less. And I don't know about you guys, but my parents always taught us we have 2 ears for a reason and 1 mouth, so that we can listen more and talk less. Solutions. Don't perceive problems or reasons why something can't be resolved. I am a solution-oriented person. It's probably why I'm in the broker role, because you're bringing problems. I'm ready to have a solution. If I don't have the solution, I know people that have the solution that I can go to. So anyone that's in the Midtown Market Center, they know I'm a high D. Don't give me the sob story. I don't want to hear about the 5-year-old rolling on the floor. I need the facts. I need to know what the contract says, and let's get you to the closing table. I'm not interested in being that rant sounding board that you want to go into right now, because that's not solving anything. You can do that later after you've closed. All right. And what does that serve you? makes you feel better, well, you can do that by yourself, or you might have a best friend at the water cooler that'll listen to that. But at the end of the day, we're running a business. If you went to Nordstrom's and all the salesperson wanted to do was tell you about their problems when all you want to do is return a lipstick, I don't think you would appreciate that. So stick to the facts, stay focused, and get solutions. Pay necessary attention to all details involved, including during the real estate transaction. The better that you prepare. When I'm going out to show property or I'm going out to list property, I practice in the car. I practice before I leave. I'm talking to myself in the car what I'm going to say, how I'm going to conduct the tour of the home. All of that goes on in my car when I pull into the driveway, and I'm ready, along with all the tools that I have. Are you doing that? Or are you just going, oh, I got to throw some food on the table for the kids and grab my stuff and run out the door, and you're all flustered and you get there and you miss details, or you don't get the listing? And are you calling the seller back to ask, or are you calling the buyer back to ask, why didn't you hire me? Because that will improve your skills. You can't say, oh, well, whatever, if they want to use someone else and so on and so. No. You didn't get it for a reason, but you don't know what the reason is. So you need to ask. I was taught this early on when I was at Century 21. Call back and say, congratulations, I see you went with XYZ. Would you do me a favor and tell me what made that person stand out better than me? It could be commission. It could be nothing. But if they say, well, you didn't listen and I kept saying this and you kept doing that. One of the things, I'm a husband and wife team. When my husband and I go on appointments early on in my career, I would get the listing, we'd get in the car and I go, how was it? And he goes, you talk too much. Excuse you. But okay, that hurt, that stung for like 5 minutes. But at the end of the day, he was right. And what he meant by that was I was overselling. I wasn't paying attention to my audience. So one of the things I'm going to share with you is if you don't know your DISC profile or your Myers-Briggs profile, or if you don't even know what I'm talking about, you can text me later and I'll talk to you about it, or call me and I'll talk to you about it. We now at Keller Williams call it KPA. So if you joined a market center and that team leader or someone on the staff gave you a KPA, they're telling you who you are and how you work under stress, how you are as a communicator, things of that nature. So I'm a high DI, leaning more towards the D. Most people think I'm an I, but I'm a D. I like bullet points. I like to get to the point, and I'm not into the BS. Okay. And I know that everyone is not built that way. So when I'm sitting across the table from someone, the small details, here we are paying attention to the details. If you have two people in front of you, are you talking to the D more and not to the I, or not to the S, or not to the C personality? And guess what? They might be the decision maker. The D is going to love you. Oh, I thought that was great. But if it's a husband and wife or significant other situation, and that person says, I didn't like her, that deal's done, because you did not adjust yourself to both sides. Now, some of you might feel uncomfortable with what I'm saying, going, well, isn't that phony? But no, it's the love language of the people you're interacting with. Think about your family members. It's not that they're difficult. You're not speaking their language. You're speaking your language, and everyone's supposed to adapt. And when you do that, that's a small detail that will cause you a deal. Same thing with a co-op agent. You might say, well, this agent, 20 years in the business and they're overbearing and I don't want to talk to, that's the other call I get. Can you call them? I don't want to talk to them. Well, it's not my transaction. There's no reason for me to talk to them. You have to put on your big girl pants and panties and say, I am going to adapt to this person's personality, because you're going to get better results. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're backing down or anything like that. You are trying to get to the end game, and the end game is the closing table. Does everybody understand that? I'm going to pause right there for a second to see if there are any questions about that. I'm guessing no. Are you guys watching the Queen's funeral? Nobody's interacting with me.
It's over now. It's over now, Deborah.
Recording it so I can speed through it. I love that pomp and circumstance. I'm a military kid, so that kind of thing is I love history also, so that kind of thing is very interesting to me.
But Deborah, you are really, really on point today.
I'm sorry, who was talking?
This is Barbara Dyer. I'm saying that you are really, really on point today with your tips
As
here.
opposed to other days, Barbara? No.
I retract that.
Go ahead, say what you were saying.
Yeah, you are hitting on some really good points here, Deborah, that they can take these tools and get themselves ready for their business to be on point for 2023, because all of the things that you're saying to them will keep them out of check jail, will keep their name off for being case law for lawsuits. Read the paragraph before, read the paragraph after, read your documents so that you know what they say. They have loopholes in there. I like what you also said about walking through the property. One of the things I do, this happened to me real early in my career. On one of my stipulations, I actually go through and write the brand name of the refrigerator, the brand name of the stove. I write the brand name and the year of the darn water heater if I can get to it. Because early in my career, I wrote a contract on a beautiful home. And when we went back to go do the walkthrough, I want you to know everything in the house is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, that just means the listing agent didn't do a good job explaining to the seller how this is going to work. You can't go in and take things down. When you go to the listing appointment, it's not just to get the paperwork signed. When you do the tour and I see a fancy, where I live, yeah, there were a couple of things that were upgraded, but I've since taken down certain lighting and put up different lighting. If I were ever to sell this place, that lighting's going with me and something else is going back up. So if someone were to walk through this house going, oh my gosh, is that beautiful Moroccan chandelier in the dining room going? Yeah, it is. Because it's from Morocco. It's coming with me.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? One more and then I'll go on. Okay, I'll go on anyway. All right. Is this helpful? Let me ask that question. Is this helpful to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
That wasn't encouraging, yes, but okay. All right, so emotional IQ, you've probably heard of that before, and if you haven't, we all have it. It's how we handle situations, whether they're stressful or happy or sad or whatever the case may be. I want you to all write this down on your handout or somewhere in a notebook or on a Post-it note. The letters N and O and put a period after it. And that is a complete sentence. That's a complete sentence. I just want to pause. No is a complete sentence. You've heard it before, and if you haven't, you're hearing it today. I learned it very early in my life, not even before real estate. It is a complete sentence.
And stop talking after you say it, right?
Tammy, thank you so much. We tend to, my husband is a man of few words. He observes everything, and then when he speaks, it's profound, in my opinion. And I wish I had more of that because I'm a talker. But what I've learned as a D, to not talk so much by writing. It slows me down. It makes me listen more. So I start listening to what the person is saying, taking notes, listening, taking notes. Then I can repeat those things back. Now that person feels like I've listened. I see them and I listen. If you're a high I, you use the word fun quite a bit. Everything is a party, everything is fun. Let's make it fun for everyone. If I were looking at property with you, you would irritate me a little bit because I do have I, but I'm down to the business. We can have fun after you get me what I want. Okay. An S and a C, those are more, S is more like assistant type people. And C is analytic. You talk too much, they don't trust you. You don't show them enough stats, they don't trust you. You don't let them think it through, and they will shut down and you get nothing. You're probably living with some of those people and you're wondering, they're just whatever you add in, but you're not paying attention to who they are. So there are two, like I said, Myers-Briggs, DISC, Very Well is another company online, and there are all kinds of things online that you could take for free that just test it out, or go to your team leader and ask them what, somebody said, I love it, and ask them, hey, could you give me the KPA, and then sit down and assess who I am? Because let me tell you something, I've always taken these tests in corporate America when I was an engineer, and it helped me. The first time I took it, and then I brought it home for my husband, he's a CD, analytic and D. The only time we disagree when we wake up and decided both of us were going to be D today. Now, what do you do when you run into someone who's a D and you're a D? Someone needs to take a step back. It doesn't show a sign of weakness. It just means this D is not going to back off. And the goal is to get to the closing table, right? So why are you trying to, I'm going to one up you. I'm not doing it. I'm not calling you back. I'm slamming the phone down on, I mean, come on, we're business people. Could you see Warren Buffett, Elon, Gates? Could you see them doing that? Maybe they do, I don't know. But I don't think they would be Oprah. I don't think they would be where they are if they slammed phones down and they had to be the smartest person in the room. We don't always have to be the smartest person or the loudest person or the person who is right all the time. Sometimes you have to sit back and let that person take the lead. So when my husband and I took that test, that's when I realized, oh my gosh, when we have disagreements, and it hardly ever happens, but when it does, now it's a joke for us. It's like, and I'll let you know, I've been married over 20 some odd years. Okay, so I must be doing something right, and he must be doing something right. And it's called communication. It's called emotional IQ. All right, so when he's in his D mode, I'm like, okay, I'll be I today, you be D. Oh, somebody wants to be D today. So, that's how we play it off. Like, okay, all right, D. The D shows up when we're on a trip and we're driving. I don't know if that's a D thing or just a man thing, but maybe it's a combination of both. But okay, I'll be the passenger over here and you be D today. All right, but just think about that with your customers. Are you dealing with a D and you're a different profile and you're not addressing the love language in order for them to understand? And so what comes out of that is you're not listening, you don't have their back. And so I'm not talking about the customer that's just totally wrong because they didn't read the contract, they don't understand the contract, and they want what they want. That's a different emotion, different class. I'm not certified to teach that. That's called therapy. I'm here to tell you that I have the experience of using DISC with everything. If I were to talk to each one of you right now and you were sitting in front of me, I could probably tell you what you are because I know how a D sits. I know how an I speaks. I know the certain words they use. I know the way they dress. All of that comes out based on who you are. It's my favorite type of book to read. So if you have never done something like that, do it. It's not manipulation. It's honing your skills to be able to communicate better with people. Okay? So create a checklist. If you're having a hard time and you are finding that you're missing a lot of details and some of the things I've said today you've experienced, it probably had to do with you were moving too fast, as you heard in the video. You didn't prepare. You didn't practice all the things that we teach you at Keller Williams. All right. So what checklist do you have? Do you have a checklist for offer writing? Do you have a checklist for when you visit properties? When, you guys are more technology babies versus in 1996 when I got my license, and I've been full-time straight through to now as a real estate agent and now a broker. I always had a system. When I was taking someone out the night before, maybe even 2 or 3 days before, I would get ready on a Thursday for a weekend showing where I would pull all of my listings. I would print the buyer copy, the agent copy. I would have the buyer's folder with all of my information in it. Now, keep in mind, prior to us going out, I did what was called a CITO, CITO, come into the office. And we would have a consultation, because when I go to the dentist or the doctor, they don't do drive-bys. Now they do Zoom, but they don't do drive-bys. You're having a consultation before they send you to a specialist. They don't just say, I diagnose you with blah, 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 and hand you medicine. No, if it's something serious, they're gonna say, I think this is what it is, but we need a second opinion. You're gonna go to a specialist, and so on and so forth, before results are given or solutions are given. So what is your checklist for everything that you do in your business? Addendum writing, do you have certain addendums? So when I write a contract, I have standard special steps that I put in every contract. Every contract, it doesn't matter, because it's protecting that buyer. And when I fill it out, I let the buyer, now these are standard things that I put in every contract to protect you. And they're like, oh, I would have never thought to add that. Right, that's why you hired me. I'm the professional. When I'm dealing with investor deals, how do I talk to that investor when they call? There are certain questions I ask them. Then I can find out whether they're a novice or a seasoned investor. I don't do too much with novices anymore, because there's a lot of them out there, and there's a lot of you out there that are trying to get into that industry. So I'll leave those for you. I'm more interested in that middle of the road and top end investor. So I have certain questions of them, and that will gauge whether they're seasoned or not. Listing management, when you get a listing, what's the first thing you do? Once you get it signed, what happens next? Once my listing is signed, I've got my photographer, videographer, we've got the 3D floor plan we do, all the different things and all the software that I use to get ready for a listing. But I prepared the seller by saying, it might be 7 to 10 days before you hit market, because I've got to get all that back. We're going on the market strong, not piecemeal. Let me put a picture here, but tomorrow the floor plan will show up, or 2 days from now, the virtual tour will show up. If you set the expectation at the beginning, then the seller is not looking on Zillow as soon as you get in the car. Where's my listing? and we do have sellers that have done that. The very next day, they're looking for their listing, and you didn't set the expectation. Well, we haven't done the pictures yet. I just gave a listing back that I've waited for 11 months. I sold them the property. They've popped the top, did all these different things, and I knew what was going to happen. I was promised the listing in April. I was promised in May. Promised meaning it would be finished, and it wasn't. And I knew every month the market changed, and I kept staying in touch with the seller going, the market is doing this now. Here are new comps. The market is doing this now. Here are the comps. That's a system for me. Then when the person finally, during my vacation, said the listing will be ready, and I got back and walked through it, then it was like, can it go on today? Somebody's putting theirs on the market for $750. I'm like, we waited for 11 months. Now you want me to go into action and throw something together for something that's going to be $700,000. $700,000 in this market is different right now. So we have to be strong with our marketing, not piecemeal. Okay. Transaction management. Some of you have a transaction coordinator. Some of you do it yourself. Do you have a checklist for that? Land deals. May not be a lot of people on this call today that work with land. But as Gary Keller said, buy dirt. You should be looking for dirt. What does that look like for you? Where are you looking? Do you know what publications to go to, websites, who to hobnob or network with to find land? And then we are going to be entering that short sale foreclosure business. Georgia's not going to be a heavy hitter with that, but it doesn't hurt for you to know, because if you don't realize, there was this little thing called a pandemic, and a lot of people went into forbearance, and now they're coming out of it. And these banks are extremely aggressive. I'm normally right now in Texas for one of the REO conventions, and because of a conflict of scheduling, I didn't go this year. But I'm a member of a lot of different things that we have Zoom calls monthly and weekly. I'm in touch with what's going on in that market, and more so in Georgia. And I just had a past client who is someone I've stayed in touch with. He was an investor and as well as a homeowner. And he called me because he needed an attorney. He received his notice of default. He was in forbearance. He's got $70,000 to catch it up, but he didn't read the letter from the attorney. And I had to explain to him, they're not going to accept your $70,000. And guess what? They don't have to. So the only thing you're going to be able to do is file bankruptcy, and I didn't recommend that, but that I'm telling you, he would have to file bankruptcy or hire an attorney that can talk back and forth to the bank. More than likely, and the particular attorney I referred him to called him back and told him the same thing that I kind of alluded to, that he was going to need to file bankruptcy. And a lot of the attorneys in this town represent a lot of banks. So it's hard to find attorneys that will represent a homeowner because they don't want to mess up their relationship with banks. So just keep that in mind if you ever run into that in a listing presentation. Are you asking the question, are you up to date on your mortgage? Did you file forbearance during the pandemic? Are you asking those questions? Small details, small details. Commercial deals, for those of you that may be commercial, one of the complaints I get from our commercial agents, that residential agents try to play commercial as well, and they're not the same. Yes, we're licensed to do all kinds of real estate, but do you really want to malpractice on someone? I always refer my commercial deals and just get a check. I have no problems with that. I have no interest in becoming a commercial agent, but I have received commissions from commercial deals. So with commercial, they don't advertise their commissions. And so a residential agent will go, I'm doing this commercial deal. And then they expect to get 3% or whatever it is they think, but that's not always the case. That commercial agent could say, no, the commission is 7, you're getting 2, and I'm getting 5. And then there's this big fight. No, I'm supposed to get 3. No, there's no such thing as you're supposed to get, because there's no such thing as standard. We don't use that word, or normal. Typical. So if you use the word standard or normal, you need to get rid of that word in real estate. It's typical. Typical, okay? Any questions about that? New construction deals. When I go to new construction, I ask the agent on site, could I get a copy of your contract? We're coming out tomorrow. I want to read their contract so I can see all the skeletons in the closet before my client gets there. Because once they fall in love with the model, they're ready to rock and roll. And then I have to tell them, when you write this contract, your earnest money is hard. But if you're just finding that out 2 or 3 days later after you sign the contract and you didn't read the contract, how are you advising your buyer what their contract says, especially if the seller, the builder, has their own contract? Commission disbursement. I get a lot of calls now. I'm very proud of a lot of you that are taking advantage of these low interest rates when they were lower than what they are now, and buying your first home or second homes or investment properties, and not understanding how the commission works. It's going to be different in different market centers, but in Midtown, we have a personal property policy. So if you are buying your own home and you want to waive your commission or use some of your commission towards closing costs or things of that nature, you need to follow that personal property policy. FMLS doesn't charge you the FMLS fee, and Keller Williams doesn't charge you the normal split. That's across the board in pretty much all the market centers, but I don't want to speak on any other market center that I'm not a part of. So you would have to ask that question. And then compliance. Barbara kind of said it earlier, keeps you out of check jail. You're not going to get your check, stop asking for it if you didn't do what you were supposed to do in command. And what everyone likes to do is say, well, I couldn't get that signed. I couldn't get that affiliate business disclosure signed. I couldn't. Well, if you did your work at the beginning with the details, you wouldn't be in check jail. You wouldn't have documents that are not signed. Okay. If you look at that handout that was given to you in the chat, I think it was, let me look at chat. I think I saw it. Yes, right here. Whoever set up this call today put it in there for us. That is just from our GAR forms, and it's it's not F, it's CO25. And you can download it again. I kind of highlighted the things that people tend to miss, things that they kind of get themselves in trouble with. Other than reading the contracts and reading all the exhibits and reading all the amendments, here are some of the things we run into. Having the correct sales contract, you're selling a condo, but you're using a purchase and sale agreement and not using the exhibit for the condo. Correct financing. That cash exhibit is causing a lot of heartburn lately. Cash is cash. Cash is that stuff you have under the mattress or in a brown paper bag, not hard money. Okay. Affiliate business arrangement. We get a lot of pushback in our office. Oh, I didn't get that signed, or the buyer or seller didn't want to sign it. When they don't want to sign it, it's because either you didn't give it to them and you're telling us they didn't want to sign it, or you didn't explain why they have to sign that. All it is the word disclosure. We are a disclosure state in Georgia. So we have to disclose we have business arrangements in our market center. You don't have to use them, but we have to have an acknowledgement that we told you about it and you sign it. Most of the time, you guys are loading things in DocuSign, making them sign, nothing's been explained, and they don't want to sign it. And that's not the way to do it. You explain the contract, then you say, now I'm going to send this to you in DocuSign so we can sign it and I can get it over to the co-op agent. Lead base, that's a federal law with high penalties. So please make sure if that house is built before 1978, you get that signed. Community association disclosure, we're about to go into the fourth quarter. Most HOAs, for those of you that live in HOAs, you know you're probably going to start getting your notifications for your meeting, your annual meetings. Maybe you have them monthly, but where I live, we have them annually. And sometimes things change. Fees change, initiation fees change. Maybe there's some bylaw amendments or changes. This is a time for you to go back to your seller and say, hey, did anything change? We listed, today, and I know it's fourth quarter now. Did you have your association meeting? Do I need to update anything? What's the biggest thing? Can anybody tell me the biggest thing that you ran into in 2020 to now that had to do with an HOA? Does anybody tell me what the biggest complaint was? Think about an investor. No? No one? No takers?
Well,
The cap on renting,
Say it aloud, say it again.
the cap on renting property.
Yes, rental restrictions. That was the number one lawsuit, basically. There was one call I had last week where I think the deal is falling apart or either it's closed. I can't remember that because I want you to also know your secret's safe with me because once I help you, it's out of my head. I'm on to the next problem. But I think it was they were under contract or they were closing or they already have closed, only to find out in FMLS it said no rental restrictions, but indeed it did have rental restrictions. So, and the agent said to me, well, the agent said, last time I checked, the agent wasn't living there. The seller needs to say that. Now, let me show you, if you look at your handout, if you did print it out, did I put it on here? Let me just look real quick. I think I did. No, I did not. But there is a form. Let me just look again. I thought it was on here. Broker. Anyway, I'm going to tell you what it is. There's a broker questionnaire GAR form. And Barbara, if you know that number, what it's called, you can chime in. Most of the time you guys are asking questions verbally by phone or sometimes by text or email. We have a form that the contract committee has provided us with. That's a Q&A form. You can put that question in writing and send it to the co-op agent for the seller to answer and sign at the bottom. Now that's a document that proves that there are no rental restrictions or there's no restrictions on parking an 18-wheeler in the driveway or no restrictions on putting my own pool in the backyard or something like that. If you're not getting documents from the seller with the HOA information and that kind of thing, or you have some question about, is that Moroccan chandelier staying because I didn't see it on the seller's disclosure, I want it to stay, you can ask for it in the contract. But if there's some burning question, another big question, septic tanks. Whether it is on septic, not on septic, where's the proof? blah, blah, blah. There's a form. You don't have to use that form, but the reason the contract committee goes through the trouble of creating forms for us with signature lines, in a court of law, a judge only wants to hear the facts and they want to see the proof. They don't want to see your text messages. They don't want to hear about when you called them Saturday night at 10 o'clock, because there's no proof to that. Have receipts. That's what the contract is, a receipt. So use those contracts. If you've not been to a contract class, I've got one coming up in October 17th and 18th, I believe. 101 is on the 17th and 102 is on the 18th. So watch for that. And of course, any of you that are in the heart of Atlanta, you are welcome to come to that class as well. Don't ask me if it's on Zoom. I have no idea. They just ask me what day, I tell them, and I show up. So if you want it on Zoom, contact Midtown. Go right ahead.
Deborah, what's the name of that form again? The broker what?
It's a broker questionnaire.
Okay.
Something like that is what it's called. I meant to write it down last night and I forgot to do that. And I don't see it on this little checklist, but it is under miscellaneous. When you look at the table of content of forms, I think it's under miscellaneous. But it's a form that you can write your question that your client is asking you of the seller and send it over. And at the bottom, it has a signature for the seller. They answer, there's a line that says question. There's another one that says answer and it's blank. The seller would be able to put their answer, or maybe even the buyer, it just depends on who's asking. And then at the bottom, it's signed by the seller. Now you know that that's a receipt, let's call it, that the seller saw it, answered it. And so when they try to have amnesia, you can go, I'm sorry, you said yes to that, or you said no to that. And then you don't get yourself in trouble. Small details, small details. Okay. Maybe you need to hire some help. I'm not going to read all this, but maybe you need to hire some help. And if you're taking screenshots, this is a great one to take a screenshot of, because if you don't have help and you're missing details, you're doing it yourself. And if you look at the second bullet point where it talks about most agents make about $111,000, $112,000 a year, and we work about 1,800 hours. And that comes to about $62 an hour. So if you don't know how much you are an hour, if you're not doing this kind of income or volume, you need to figure out what are you worth per hour, that you're spending a lot of time looking over your paperwork, or should you hire someone who is a little bit more detail oriented to look it over so that you can capture those hours back and do more transactions, okay? And then also this one too, little details of how to talk to people. Remember at the beginning when I said, write down the sentence no? There's a great way to let people down well. You can refer them. You could say, one of the ones that I like, and I put it on here, before I work with anyone, I make sure we have a good working relationship. And that comes from the CETO, come into the office. So I can see if they like me, I like them, because we all know the saying, if they show you who they are at the beginning, that is how the transaction's going to go, period. Because when I get the broker call, they'll say, well, this was my friend from high school. Well, they're the worst. They're the ones that are going to do it, or this was my sister. Yeah, they're the ones that are going to do it. So at the end of the day, even when I work with my family, they sign buyer brokerage agreements, they sign listing agreements, they have a CETO with me. It doesn't matter that I'm related to them. This is my work. So we need to follow my work. And you need to not do one thing for one person and not the other. You could be called out on that as well. If you have a system, it needs to be consistent with everyone. So no one calls you out on that. Small details. Okay. I just had to use this script at the bottom that says, thank you for, well, it wasn't a referral. It was someone who, like I said, who I was going to list. And then they decided they wanted to start asking me for 2% commission and so on and so forth. And that's not how I roll. Now, if it's a bank, I have to roll that way because that's how they operate now, 1%, 2%. But on a normal, typical listing, that's not how I roll. And so when someone is going to go back and forth with me on something, I'm not going to take them on like it's a fight. I'm just going to let them know, hey, it doesn't look like my services are going to align with your goals. Did you hear that? My services are not going to align with your goal. Let me refer you to someone whose services will align with your goal, whether that be for sellbyowner.com or one of your colleagues, and you get a referral fee. And I'm done. I get to keep my sanity, maybe get a referral fee, but there's a respect to that from that other person. Maybe they might have an attitude and go, oh my gosh, but I don't usually get that. I usually get a respect that, you know what? And then I'll tell you what ends up happening. When it doesn't sell, guess who calls you back? Because you let them down professionally and without an attitude. All right. Did you guys like that script? No? Yes? You'll use it?
Yes.
So in conclusion, we're going to wrap up here. We started a few minutes late, so thank you for hanging in there with me. But in any significant task, the tiniest details are important. Your contracts are important. Your home tours are important. Meeting with your clients prior to doing anything is important. Following up with them along the way is important. Even if it's a nurturing situation, this is what's going on. If it's a listing down the road, you know you're going to get, staying in touch, little detail. So there's no surprise when you get there going, well, no, you said I could get 700,000 in January. Well, it's now September, almost October. That 700 is now really more like 625. Okay, unless you want to sit on the market and chase it. Pay attention to the tiniest details now, and you'll save lots of disappointment later. Now, if you're first time on this call, you may not be familiar with Wiseman. Seth Wiseman is one of our counsel. He has a real estate firm. He represents contractors, agents in court, things of that nature. And usually when we hear about court cases, it comes from Wiseman. You can also contact him on GAR site if you ever have any legal questions you want to ask about the contract. You have that service that's free to you through your being a member, being a realtor member. But he sends out a video probably every 2 weeks or so. So you want to go to YouTube and subscribe to this YouTube platform for Wiseman. And what happens, those videos will come to your phone, your tablet, your PC, and they're anywhere from 1 minute to 4 minutes long about something in our contracts or some new special stip that will help you in the future. So if you haven't subscribed, I highly recommend it. He's got a contract class this week. I think the last, all this week, it's 5 classes, but you don't have to take all 5 classes. You can break it up if you want, and they're about $25 each. You can go to his website to find out more about that. I always go to his classes. I'm not taking the whole 5 days because I've done it a few times, but there's 2 I'm going to. Also, our contracts change in January. I haven't gotten word on the changes yet, but the contract class I'm teaching in October is about the 2022 contracts. And then there won't be another contract class until I get the new information. And we'll probably have contract classes again starting in December to talk about any new changes, unless you know that information, Barbara.
We're working on it right now.
You're looking at, okay, if you'll let me know. Normally we start hearing about it September, October, and we've only got about 2 more weeks left. All right, well, if you have to run, I understand, but if not, if there are any additional questions, I'd love to hear some ahas or questions from today, and we can wrap this up.
Deborah, I just have a quick question, request. Can you redrop the slides? I was on a mobile device earlier and I didn't see them, so on my laptop now. So if you can redrop those today.
Lisa, I'll make sure you get it. I'll send it to you.
Okay, good, because I do
Okay.
that. They usually set all this up for me and I just show up.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I learned how to do that.
Thank you. No problem.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Barbara, for doing that. Anyone
Thanks,
else?
Barbara.
You're welcome. And Deborah, I was just looking at our schedule, as a matter of fact, because we do have another form. We just had a forms committee meeting on Friday.
Oh, good. Okay.
We have our last one for the year in November.
Okay.
We're making those changes now for 2023.
Uh-huh.
We're gonna have some changes for y'all too. And that cash exhibit, oh, that's one of the hot buttons.
Oh, good, because it has been a hot button all year for broker issues for me. You know, Wise did a class mid-year and he even shocked me, you know, even people that have been in the business for a long time learn something every day. And he made the comment that that form is for cash only, yet it does state about the hard money, which I was excited about when you guys added that. And now he's saying, no, that's not what that means. So I got a little confused. So I still teach it the way I think it's supposed to be used, but that one needs to be, we have too many agents working with investors using hard money, and either we need to come up with a different form for that or expand on that cash exhibit. You know, that would be my opinion, but I'll be looking forward to see what the change is for that.
Oh, yeah, and they are really looking at expanding on it too, Deborah. They really have, the committee has really ripped it apart this year. We see the heartburn it has caused in the industry.
Good.
And so,
Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
Because that's not going away. We have a lot of hedge funds out here. We have a lot of investors buying and building rental properties and things of that nature. That's not going away. So we really need to have something that's official to address that, because it is creating some confusion with the agents when it comes to these cash deals.
Yeah, well, we hope what we got now help everybody. We got
Good.
We got some check boxes and everything. And
Good.
We're gonna meet on November 4th to review the forms for 2023. So
Okay.
After our meeting on November 4th, I'll be able to give you a date.
Yeah, I bet you it'll probably be sometime either before Thanksgiving or right after. Yeah, or at least no later than the first week of December, which is when I usually start teaching new stuff, the new part of the new contract for 2023. And for those of you that are newer agents, our contracts, when our contracts change, the entire body of forms don't change. There's 587 forms as of today anyway. I don't know what it'll be in 2023. Change every form. They change the forms that have given us the most heartburn or the most lawsuits. And because our market changes. So when our market changes, sometimes our contracts have to be adjusted. And then we start using 2023 forms and the 2022 go away. So if you look at the top right-hand corner, you notice it's always copywritten with the current year that we're supposed to be using. And then your market center will get rid of all the 22 out of command or whatever resource you're using or platform, and they'll replace it with the 2023. So always make sure you're using the most current, and that's what protects you. Little details protects you the most. Anyone else have anything to add or aha or hey, I wish I'd heard this sooner comment? All right. Well, if not, then I think that's it for September. And look for the dates for the October broker chat. We thank you for always supporting it. And if you have any specific topics or comments on how you would like to see this change, or any particular topics that we need to cover for you that seem to be common, then let us know. But we see a lot of repeat things, and that's why we pick certain topics, and paying attention to detail was the one that was brought to my attention. So that's why I decided to do that. So thank you so much. Anybody need my information? I am Deborah Blue. That's the biblical way. My broker email only is dblue@kw. Don't use the across Atlanta.